Good morning. Today is Wednesday, the 10th day of Elul. And we continue in the chapter 12, the letter 12 of the Igeret Hakodesh, the holy letters of the Alter Rebbe. And again, this letter talks about the tzedakah, the special, different things what the tzedakah does. There's two ways of doing tzedakah. He calls it, there's a verse that says there is the Maaseh tzedakah, the act of tzedakah, and there is the avodas tzedakah, the work of tzedakah. So the verse says that the acts of tzedakah brings peace, the work of tzedakah brings tranquility and surety forever. So the Alter Rebbe says he wants to explain this verse, what that means. It's not just poetry that repeats things. Each word has a meaning. And in these few days, as we learn the chapter, we come and become more clear in the different aspects of this verse. So we explained, first of all, in order to understand it, first of all, it says we need to understand what is peace. The acts of tzedakah brings you peace. So we explained there is peace above and peace below. Oseh shalom bimramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. The one who makes peace above, he makes peace here. So we say, what does it mean, peace above? Peace above means to get together the angel Michael and the angel Gabriel. Use it for example. Angel Michael represents kindness, the attributes of kindness. There's the attribute of severity that is represented by the angel Gabriel. In order to make peace between them, you need to bring something which is above them. You get the boss involved, Hashem, the higher energy that unites them both. Then you have peace down below. What is peace down below? In the lower worlds, and especially in our physical world, the world is a world that is mixed, good and not good together. Ever since the sin of Adam and Eve when they ate from the tree of knowledge, that caused a mixture of good and evil. No matter how much good you do, there's always the evil involved. So we have to make peace between them. How do you make peace? What is the way to make peace? The only way to make peace is to purify and to elevate the good, and the evil will disappear. That's what we explained yesterday. There's a story that relates to this. Once the Tzaddik, I think it was told about Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Bardichev, when he was a holy man, and they offered him, when it was in the holiday, to go to the Amad, to lead the congregation with the words of Ata Reisa Ladas and Simchas Torah, that you are God, you've shown to know that you are the only one God, and he puts on his talents. And he's like talking to himself. And at the end, he's talking to himself, and at the end he says, if you were with me, then you say Ata Reisa. And he takes off the talus and he moves away. And people didn't understand what was going on. It felt like he was in a place that he didn't know him, and they thought there was something wrong with him mentally. So he then later explained to them. He says, when I came to say Ata Reisa, these words, then I noticed somebody else with me under the talus. And I look and I see the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is with me, wants to say along with me the Ata Reisa. And I asked him, what are you doing here? What are you thinking? I said, what are you doing? He says, what do you mean I'm doing? I'm here to say Ata Reisa. So I said to him, who do you think you are? You say Ata Reisa? So he tells me, who do you think you are? So I say to him, I am a student of the Mezritcher Maggid. I studied by the Maggid, I studied Hasidus. So he tells me, I was there with you. I was there all along with you. And finally, back and forth, I said to him, listen, if you want to say Atoresa, go ahead, you take the talis and you say Atoresa. Obviously, this story has depth into it. What does it mean? That the Maggid, the Rabbi Yitzchak Berditchever realized that no matter where you go, there's always an inclination, the evil inclination wants to be part of it. No matter what you do, you're doing something positive, there is always some ulterior motives that is involved also in your acts. And you have to be on guard, which by the way relates to what we spoke about last night with the mitzvah of putting up a fence. But no matter how high, and because you reach up high, sometimes that you are even in more danger zone, you have to put up a fence and to be constantly in check to see where it is. Now, in order to make peace between them, how do you make peace? It's because he's always there, the evil is always involved. So how do you make peace? You bring upon a bigger light that penetrates and separates the good from the evil. Now this, the Alter Rebbe says, is something that is ultimately it'll happen when Mashiach comes. Then we will have the ultimate separation, and that will bring the peace. That even the other side will also agree to become part of the holiness. That is ultimately when Mashiach comes. Now, until Mashiach comes, we can have it temporarily. We can have it at times when we daven, when we study Torah, we go involved into these things in a very deep way, that this also can help you to be able to separate temporarily those things. And this is done through the Maaseh Tzedakah, the acts of Tzedakah. So now the Alter Rebbe continues to say, what does it mean, the acts of Tzedakah? And what does it mean, the work of Tzedakah? So let's look inside. Okay. 1 second. There we go. Says the Alter Rebbe, והנה מידע זויס שישראל בטיבם הם רחמנים וגויים לחסדים. Now it is well known that the Jews by their very nature act compassionately and perform deeds of loving kindness. Why? This is so because their soul issues from God's attributes. The neshama of a Jew comes from the inner part of Hashem, as we know, as we'll soon see. It comes from the attributes of God. Now, the attributes, God's attributes, has kindness overpowering all of the attributes. The giving. The attributes of Hashem, obviously, we have different attributes of kindness, attributes of severity, to give, to constrict. But the kindness always overpowers everything. Asher chesed goyre behem al midas hadin v'agvur v'tzimtzum, in which chesed prevails over the attributes of din, gevura, and tzimtzum. Those are the attributes of judgment, severity, and contraction. As it is written, his chesed prevails over those who fear him. So this is alluding to the fact that divine attributes of chesed prevail over the divine attributes of gevura. The soul is therefore called the daughter of a Kohen, the daughter of the priest. As it is written in the Holy Zohar. Why? Because a Kohen, it says Kohen is a Isha Chesed. Kohen is a man of kindness, that brings kindness. And the neshama is called a bas kohen because it has this attribute of kindness to it. והנה, הצדקה הנמשכת מבחינה זו נקראת בשם מעשה הצדקה. Now, the charity that is issued from this source, from the soul's inherently kind and compassionate nature, this is referred to as the act of charity. Why act of charity? So he says, kishem maise, in Hebrew, the word maise, which means act. The word maise says, noifel al davar shekvar nasa, or shenasa tomid b'meila. The term act, maise, applies to that which is already done or which is constantly being done spontaneously. So when something is done, or something is spontaneously, constantly done, that's called maise, the act. Thus, sometimes this is something that is existent, common, and constant, constantly doing. And here too, in regard to tzedakah, arei midas hachesed v'rachmanus hudba'o benafshois kol Israel mikvar. He said the same thing here. The midah, the attributes of chesed, the kindness and compassion, is implanted in the souls of the entire house of Israel from aforetime. Me'eis briuson, from the time that they were created and they evolved from God's attributes. Ever since then, this is the nature of the Jew. As it is written in regards to Adam's soul entering his body, that says, and he blew into his nostrils a soul of life. And likewise, we say in the morning prayer, we say, you blew it into me. That Hashem blew this nature, this soul into us. And as it says in the in the second chapter of the Tanya, it says, Uman denofach chulu. And he who blows from within him, from the innermost being. So Hashem blew in us this soul, and that soul comes from the attributes of Hashem, the inner part of the attributes, and those are attributes that the chesed, the kindness prevails. And this is why, by nature, we are all have that kindness in the nature. V'gam, not only that, not only is it something that it's done, it was done and it's there, but it's constantly being done. Meaning the creation is happening every day, and therefore the neshama is also being again and again blown into us, so to speak. Says the Alter Rebbe, v'gam b'chol yom v'yom b'tuvah mechadesh ma'aseh bereishis. Says furthermore, in his goodness, God renews the act of the creation every single day. And this includes the supernal attributes. V'chadoshim labakorim, likewise, in regard to the soul below, it is written, they are anew every morning. So this is, therefore, the maaseh, the act, is something that it's done automatically, it's done regularly, something that is doing common. This is part of the nature, and that's what we're doing. So what happens when we do the acts of tzedakah? As we said, this brings the peace. It brings upon the light of Hashem. In order to bring peace, when you bring the kindness, it brings the peace between the other side and the good side, in order to reveal the good side in us. And this is the Ma'aseh Tzedakah. Now, when we're talking about avodah, when we're talking about work, here we're talking about a whole different level. Ach lo shein avodah einen neufel elo al davar she'adam oiseh bi'egia atzuma neged teva nafshay. This is the term service, avodah. The term service, however, applies only to what man does with immense exertion. contrary to his soul's inclination. Avodah in Hebrew also comes from the word ibud orot. Ibud orot means when you work the leather, you make it, you work it, you change it. This is the idea of when we're talking about avodah, we're talking about the inner part of working against the nature and doing something which is not natural to us. He says, it is when you're nullifying that, when he overrules his nature and will out of deference of the supreme will, in doing it for Hashem. Kegoin, so he brings an example, exhausting himself, for example, in Torah and prayer to the extent of pressing out the soul. Sometimes we could study Torah when it's nice, relax on the beach and take a nice listening to nice Torah class. We enjoy it, which is beautiful. It's still a mitzvah, a big mitzvah, studying Torah. But it's not the same when you put yourself, your heart and soul into the Torah and really exert your mind to understand the depth of the Torah, going further, deeper, because the depth of the Torah has no limits. And the same thing is with prayer. You can pray to Hashem and understanding, using the words. Prayer is also this, constantly our mind flies in many different directions. To focus on prayer in general is not easy. But certainly there is levels in it. And you take the levels each day. So when you do this, that's avodah. That is work. The same thing says the Alter Rebbe is also true with tzedakah. In our case too, with regard to the commandment of giving charity, to serve Hashem with charity entails giving far more than would be prompted by the nature of one's compassion and will. And as our sages of blessed memory commented on the verse, it says in the Torah, give, you shall give. A verse in the Torah. So that our sages tell us in the Talmud that you give, you shall give, meaning that you should give and give and give, even 100 times. That, says the Alter Rebbe, this part is avodah tzedakah. This is the work of tzedakah, not just giving because you have an interest in something, it talks to you, you have a compassion, you feel. Every time you feel, there is a reason why we want to give. When you have no reason to give, or when you go beyond your first instinct of what to give, this is the tzedakah that has the term of avodah, the work of tzedakah. And tomorrow, the Alter Rebbe is going to explain the end of this verse that says, what is the result of such a work of tzedakah? It says the hashked v'vetach, the tranquility. And he's going to explain the difference between the results of the regular tzedakah, the ma'aseh tzedakah, and what is resulted from the giving tzedakah in a way of avodah, in the serving Hashem. So this is the end of this shir today. It's good to see you all. Thank you so much for joining. And Be'ezrat Hashem will continue tomorrow. And make sure to share this, subscribe, invite some friends to join us. And we can take my questions if anyone has.